questions. The three topics I want to talk about today are number one, what to expect at our polls tomorrow, and detail our efforts to ensure that every voter's health and safety will be protected. I also want to talk about what to expect after our polls close tomorrow and the timing of our election results. And then I'm also going to discuss what we need every voter and all of you as we prepare to counter misinformation and disinformation in the days ahead. So first, our polling places will be safe for every voter tomorrow. One of the silver linings of 2020 has been that voters have options to cast their ballots this year. And many voters have taken advantage of those options. In fact, close to 3 million voters have already voted in this year's election early by casting absentee ballots. We anticipate that more than 2 million voters will show up to vote registers tomorrow, leading us to estimate that 5 million will vote, putting us on a path towards record-breaking voter turnout for this 2020 general election. Now, to manage a high voter turnout general election, one of the things we've learned over the years there are things we need to do, and I'll talk about that, and that we also need to ensure everyone's health and safety is protected in order to have a successful election. So this has been our strategy since the pandemic came to Michigan this spring. As I mentioned, we had 3 elections this year, 2 during the pandemic that we have successfully both reduced or eliminated attention to crowd lines at polling places and protected the health and safety of our election workers while ensuring that the right to vote is accessible to all. First, we have to educate voters about every option but to the fact that 2/3 of our voters have already voted before the polls open tomorrow. That is successful. We noticed that online states many people who would work in polling locations and absentee boards throughout the day tomorrow is because of this work, we confidently say that every clerk has come to us with full requirements and provided with personnel to cover every state. We also have in our August primary a handful of polling locations not immediately open at 7 a.m. on Monday, particularly in Detroit, because of unexpected physical challenges or for worker basis. So in advance of tomorrow, members of my team have visited every polling location in some of our largest jurisdictions to confirm the physical readiness. And we have a reserve pool of over 2,000 trained volunteers on standby. We address and fill any unexpected basis that occur. We also want to make sure everyone's health and safety is protected tomorrow. That's why our office provided every election worker PPE, masks, gloves, sanitizer, and social distancing guidelines for every precinct to ensure every polling location complies with CDC guidelines, and encouraging as well voters to show up wearing masks to respect everyone's health as well. So again, if you're planning to vote in person tomorrow, do plan on wearing a mask as a way of protecting your health and safety as well as those of others. I also remain steadfastly determined, along with our Attorney General and state and local law enforcement, to protect every voter's right to cast their ballot free from intimidation or harassment. As the Michigan Court of Appeals stated in their ruling last week, it is well established under state and federal law that anyone who intimidates a voter in Michigan by brandishing a firearm is committing a felony. And this is enforceable by Michigan State Police and local law enforcement. The Attorney General and I are working in collaboration with state and local law enforcement, and we will work to have people in the field throughout the day tomorrow to ensure the law is followed statewide. Whether they're representing our office or the Attorney General's, the people we will have in the field throughout the state will be ready to swiftly respond and address any instance of threats or intimidation. The idea, frankly, that any voter should feel fearful as they prepare to cast their vote for the leader of the free world is antithetical to everything our democracy stands for. And for that reason, we will continue to prioritize ensuring that our polling places remain an island of calm where voters are protected, their rights are secure, and the law is vigorously enforced. We ask voters to report any incident of voter intimidation to an election worker, and we have instructed clerks to report any intimidation to law enforcement. The bottom line is that in Michigan, voter intimidation is illegal, and it will be charged and prosecuted in our state to the fullest extent of the law. So the second topic I will cover is what to expect after the polls close tomorrow and the timing of our election results. So as we've said repeatedly and consistently throughout this year, we will count every valid vote cast in this election. And we will, Ohio, Kentucky, allow far more time for the absentee ballot processing and in some cases tabulation process. Florida clerks have 40 days. For more than a year, Michigan clerks and I called on our state legislature to take action. They did not. And so our voters in the nation will have to wait as thousands of election workers will still work diligently and methodically to securely tabulate every ballot. In our August primary, it took 40 hours for a full tabulation of every one of the 1.6 million absentee ballots that were voted in that primary. Many of our 1,500 jurisdictions were finished well before that 40-hour end, but that was how long it took for every single jurisdiction to be complete. So now, in November, we are on track to see double the number of absentee ballots, just over 3 million, submitted before 8 p.m. tomorrow. Based on basic math, we should expect it would take no more than 80 hours to count those ballots, which would take us through Friday. Now, just as in August, some jurisdictions may report their full unofficial results sooner, and that's great. We welcome that. And from the moment the polls close until the moment that full unofficial statewide tabulation is complete, we will continue to update all of you and the public and the nation as to where we are in the process. One thing I also want to note is that 4 counties in the state of Michigan are on Central Time. So our polls close at 8 p.m., but 4 counties will close at 8 p.m. Central Time, making our end of day announcement to be timed for 9 p.m. Eastern Time, even though in the majority of our counties, the polls close at 8 p.m. Eastern. So as the count proceeds, I know that our clerks and their absentee counting boards are going to work as efficiently and methodically as they can to securely count every vote. We have in many places doubled, in some cases tripled, the number of high-speed ballot tabulators and other equipment on hand. And as I mentioned earlier, we've worked to recruit new election workers to be prepared to increase the capacity of these absentee counting boards. But clerks have rightly instructed election workers to be diligent and meticulous and to ensure every ballot is counted accurately. That takes time. In Michigan, our election workers count absentee ballots in pairs, one Republican and one Democrat, to ensure there's no political bias and that every ballot is counted fairly. So again, this takes time, it always has. But what it takes is this time and patience for us to ensure that every ballot is counted, and at the end of the process, the public can be assured that the unofficial results we announce whenever there is a full tabulation will be an accurate reflection of the will of the people. Finally, I want to discuss what we need from every voter and from every one of you watching as we prepare to counter misinformation and disinformation in the days ahead. Now, I fully expect that our voters will be targeted with false information about their rights and the integrity of the voting process, and that our state will be the target of misinformation shared on social media and elsewhere. Unverified claims of things occurring will be posted on social media, circulated by some news outlets, and campaigns and candidates may make statements that will be proven ultimately untrue. Every step of the way, members of my administration and I will work to swiftly correct any misinformation we see or hear about, just as we have all year. But it is a team effort to ensure that we are truly successful. We cannot allow scare tactics and lies to deter any citizen from exercising their right to vote, nor will we allow foreign or domestic actors to discredit our elections, attack our democracy, and sow seeds of doubt among our electorate about the verifiable and accuracy of our results. We cannot do this alone. We need voters, members of the media, and elected officials and other leaders to stand vigilant along with us and to commit to reporting only verifiable, accurate information in the days ahead. So to voters, seek out trusted information from trustworthy sources. Verify, either with our office or your local election official, anything that seems wrong. Share facts and data instead of rumors and opinions. You can report false information at any time to misinformation@michigan.gov. When that happens, we will be able to quickly track it, respond, and if necessary, debunk it. You can also go to michigan.gov/election security to get verifiable, true information of everything we've done to secure our elections process. And you'll also see there a list of misinformation and myths that we've already debunked. Above all else, we're calling on everyone to demonstrate your patriotism by standing up in support of the integrity of our elections. And know that in Michigan, every valid ballot will be counted and counted securely and accurately, and our election results will be a reflection of the will of the people. Do not believe anyone who tells you otherwise, and we continue to want to work with every single one of you to ensure that truth, facts, and data rule the day. So with that, thank you all again for being here, and I'm happy to take your questions. Yes. Beginning when the polls close, as I mentioned, we will be making updated announcements. And I'll take a step back to say right now we've got about 2.9 million ballots returned, as I mentioned, and 3.3 million ballots requested. Tomorrow morning, we'll make another announcement about how many ballots we've got in. And because at that moment, those will be begun being counted. And then when the polls close, which is again 8 p.m., but for the full state, it will, in recognition of those additional counties, it'll be around 9 p.m. Eastern when we're able to provide an update as to how many ballots were tabulated throughout the day and how many ballots continue to be tabulated. One of the things we'll be watching is how many ballots get turned in on election day, because remember, a ballot just has to be in by 8 p.m. tomorrow night to count. So it is possible we'll get a significant influx of ballots late in the day, and that will cause us to have to adjust our expectations appropriately. But from the moment the polls close to the moment we have that full statewide tabulation, we will continue to give you all the information we have about how many ballots have been tabulated, what those unofficial results are, and how many ballots are left to go to get towards that full statewide tabulation. Both. So tomorrow we'll have two parallel tracks happening, the counting of absentee ballots and the tabulation of in-person voting throughout the day. So in many precincts, although every jurisdiction has its own procedures, many precincts will report out Tuesday night what those results were, and they'll be announced as we have them. But many jurisdictions will wait or perhaps announce together whatever absentee ballots have already been counted alongside those and including those voted in person. So you're going to see a mix of both at the end of the day. And again, it's about making sure that we have, that every time we get an update, whether in absentee ballots or in-person ballots, that we will post them, we'll keep you informed so that you know how far along we are in the process. But we're not going to see a scenario, it's very unlikely we'll see a scenario where you're only hearing about ballots that were voted in person and what those results are, because it's very likely that many jurisdictions will have results to announce as well at the same time those in-person tabulations are being made. Okay, I'll continue. For absentee ballots, once a ballot is received, the signature is checked and verified to confirm that the ballot is valid and should be voted. Then it's opened, it's flattened, it's sorted into the correct precinct, and then put through the tabulator. Again, all of this happens with a bipartisan group of poll workers or election workers observing the process and being a part of the process. And when you've got millions of ballots, all of that takes time. Even just simply opening the envelope, taking a ballot out of its secrecy sleeve and flattening it takes time. So that's why, in particular, if we get hundreds of thousands of ballots at the end of the day tomorrow, they still have to be verified. They still have to be validated before the envelopes even opened and the ballots are flattened and prepared for tabulation. So it's a multi-factor, many-step process that is all in line with what the security protocols call for. But that's why we're going to take time and be methodical about it to ensure accuracy at the end of the day. Ken? We're mindful of every potential contingency that could occur tomorrow in that regard. We believe very much in our process and welcome anyone who would like to observe it.
We, as I said, will have members from my team as well as state, local law enforcement, and the Attorney General all across the state as well, determined to guard the process from anyone who would seek to undermine its integrity. That said, we fully anticipate that in whatever path it takes, every valid ballot will be counted in our state. And if candidates or otherwise try to say or suggest otherwise, it simply won't be true, and we'll be there to validate that truth and that accuracy if any misinformation like that occurs.
What are the practices that come to by question? Is there anything you can do to sort of develop how we have the ability to that?
I'm quite confident in our processes here in Michigan and the work that we've done over the past year to ensure that voters know how to cast a vote that will count and track their ballots, and our election workers know how to ensure every valid vote is counted. And so, again, myself, the Attorney General's team, local law enforcement, and state law enforcement will be on hand throughout the state to ensure that every rule is followed and every valid ballot is counted, and that, again, at the end of whenever our full tabulation is ready to be announced, people can have faith that their vote will count and that the results will be an accurate reflection of the full tabulation. We've been very meticulous about protecting the integrity of the infrastructure, so much so that we feel, and you see this happening, the best way to threaten the security of our elections is by the spread of misinformation, to get voters to doubt or perceive lack of integrity when in truth it really exists. Now, for a number of things, I'll step back and say, when I took office, we noticed there were really 3 potential vulnerabilities, each of which has been addressed. One is with our voter registration file, to which point we've done a number of things, all of which are detailed at michigan.gov/election security, but that include multi-factor authentication for anyone who accesses the file and other things in place, as well as training for our local clerks to ensure the security of the voter file. In addition to that, the machines and making sure they're accurately tabulating our ballots has been a priority of ours. We've worked with our vendors to increase the security there, and we'll be doing a post-election audit, statewide risk limiting audit, to again confirm that our machines accurately count the paper ballots that are in place. And then third, the transmission of results from our machines to the centralized receiving board has also been examined to make sure that that's secure as well, and that we have multiple protocols in place to check and double check the accuracy of the totals that are reported. So we've been very vigilant about every element of that, and for that reason, I feel confident in the security of our infrastructure, and that's why we focus so much on engaging and empowering voters to help us fight security breaches in efforts to hack the voter's mind, if you will, about their understanding of the process. Yes. Candidates can do and say what they're going to, candidates will do or say whatever they want, particularly to further any political narrative or partisan agenda, and we recognize that. However, the rules surrounding recounts and the way in which they operate are directly related in many ways to the closeness of the unofficial tabulation. And so, we've got procedures in place for a potential recount. Right now, we're working to ensure, to get to your second question, that those absentee counting boards and polling places are functioning in a way that will ensure a full recount can occur under state law. But again, it would be, I would not advise any candidate to make any announcements about a recount prior to a full tabulation, because that would probably directly affect whether a recount is advisable. That said, in terms of the pre-processing that's happening today, I have checked in with a number of facilities. It seems to be going quite smoothly. In my view, the greatest benefit of the pre-processing happening today will not necessarily be an advantage to have results in sooner. Maybe we'll get them a few hours earlier than we might have, but it actually has helped a lot of election workers work through any kinks and smooth out the process to prepare for tomorrow, which is to me beneficial as well. In other words, I think they'll be more efficient tomorrow because of. Correct. Yeah, I sped through that. We noticed in August that we needed to have a reserve corps in place in case there were unexpected vacancies on election day or no-shows. In August, we ended up placing about 85 people throughout the state, 50 in Detroit, noting and anticipating vacancies may be higher for a number of reasons. We've recruited and we've got 2,000 people on standby, ready to go, of who can go where, who can go to Detroit, who can go to Muskegon, Grand Rapids, Kalamazoo, or wherever we get a call. And then we'll also have folks from my office in clerks' offices, as well as at polling places throughout the state when they open at 7 a.m. to immediately know if there's any shortage so that we can immediately make those calls either in the morning or throughout the day if vacancies occur. Yes, absolutely. I mean, what you saw today is an example of our protocols working. Essentially, if there's any disruption at all, either at our polling places or our absentee counting board, it will not be tolerated. And our precinct workers will be protected just as our voters will be. And both the precinct workers and our clerks and our local law enforcement are aware of the protocol in place to ensure things are addressed swiftly and effectively. And that's really one of my hopes for tomorrow. We're ready to go. I feel like we're going to have a day full of, frankly, very inspiring moments as so many people vote. But if there are things that occur that are disruptive, we've got a plan and protocol in place to ensure they're addressed swiftly so as to minimize any potential disruption and ensure that we prioritize making sure every vote counts and every voter can cast their ballot. Social media, and I'm worried about, and this is what we've seen already in in past elections this year, doctored images or false reports of disruption at the polls that aren't accurate. And that's another reason why we will have people on the ground throughout the state so that as soon as we hear of something, and we encourage people to report it to us so that we can verify it. I've seen, having done voter protection work for the better part of 2 decades, oftentimes there's so much heightened tensions that people will either falsely report or erroneously report disruption when it has not occurred, or it's not occurred to the extent that maybe it's been reported on social media. So that's why for us, having eyes and ears on the ground, which we will have to validate any report of long lines or other concerns at the polls, is something we'll be prioritizing throughout the day so that we can, again, validate anything that's out there and assure people if things are smooth sailing that they have no reason to fear coming out to vote. We have connected primarily with voters and communities all across the state, and many of their faith leaders, many of the grassroots leaders there as well. We're there to make sure they can cast their vote and cast their vote with pride, that it will count. And so in partnering, whether it's with prominent athletes and sports teams, faith leaders, or, again, other organizations and nonpartisan leaders throughout the state, or even business leaders as well, reach every voter with the information they need to cast their ballot. And now that we're on track to see record-breaking turnout even potentially among young voters, I'm really confident that those partnerships we've built so effectively over the past nearly 2 years since I took office are starting to pay off, as we see by and large people are trusting the system, trusting the administration that we've set up, and they're participating in it, which is really great and gratifying to see. Yes. The gap is actually better than it's been in past years. In fact, it's just about a little bit more of a return rate, a higher return rate, just slightly than we were in 2016. Of course, we have 3 times as many ballots in this election coming in. So to me, it's by and large been successful. But that said, we're leaving no stone unturned. And that's why right now the Attorney General is actually at the Detroit Processing Center for the Postal Service in Detroit and visiting Pontiac as well to confirm that ballots have been moved through the process. We've talked with the Postal Service twice a week for the past several weeks to again confirm that they're moving ballots through the process and that things are not stalled in any way. And then we've installed over 1,000 drop boxes all across the state so that citizens have that viable alternative to get their ballot in by 8 p.m. on Election Day. And we see those drop boxes being used. So these return rates are actually, in my view, a validation of the success of our efforts to get ballots in on time. The tracking system as well has empowered voters to track their own ballot and troubleshoot if it doesn't get received. So we do anticipate ultimately that some ballots may be ultimately spoiled and not returned as voters perhaps choose to vote in person instead. But notably, only 1 vote per voter will count, and we're able to meticulously track that as well through our statewide tracking system as well as our qualified voter file. So thanks, everyone. You've exhausted your questions for one afternoon. I'm sure I'll see you all tomorrow morning and throughout the day. And I appreciate the work you're doing to cover democracy. Thanks.